I'm Ricky.
And I'm Joe, and this is Season 7, Episode 4 of the Beer and Broadband Podcast, slated to come out on April 23rd, 2024. And, we got some things to talk about, mostly emulation and terrible advertising crap, but the thing that's not depressing is this beautiful Christmas ale that's from Great Lakes Brewing Company, the Barrel Aged Christmas Ale. It's an ale with spices and honey aged in bourbon barrels. You know how much I love bourbon. It is 1 pint at 8.0% ABV. What do you think, Ricky?
That's phenomenal. I love it. It's very light, but the flavors mellow really well together. Like it's got a little bit of some sweetness to it. It's got some of the spices. I'll admit it's maybe not very sharp in the sense that it's spice blend. You can break it up into a couple spices, but like I'd be hard pressed if it was like a 10 spice blend to name all 10. But the final product, so smooth, very light. Most of these barrel aged things are really high in the ABV, which make them a little astringent in your mouth.
Yep.
Not really so here.
Yep.
And this is cold. And as we've discovered, the beers are kind of better at the end of the podcast than the beginning, so I'm only going to drink half now and have the other half later. But if it already tastes this good, fairly cold still, this is pretty impressive. I might have to grab like a picture of the can of this one.
Yeah, this is so far like hitting on my favorite can this season.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to come back, or my favorite beer this season. I mean, so at first, when you were like, this is phenomenal, I was like, oh, he's being sarcastic. He's about to tell me something like this is the most horrible thing he's ever put in his mouth or something like that. Which, I mean, we've had some pretty bad beers. The Laguntas, like Hopimus Maximus or whatever. There are people that love that beer. For us, that was a terrible beer. I remember you asking me on podcast, why are you still drinking that if it's so bad? And I was like, because I want to punish myself so much, I will never consider buying this ever again. It was wrong of me to have bought this. I should never buy it again. This is the opposite of that. Like, I want to drink it so much, I want to remember it for the rest of my life. It might have just moved up into one of the top 5 of beers that I've ever had.
It's really good.
It's got everything that I love, too. It's like cinnamon. So, for anybody that doesn't know me very well, I am a fiend for like bear claws and cinnamon rolls and stuff like that. You put something that's even like close to that in front of me, and I love it. It's got that baking spice cinnamon stuff in it. It is honey. I love mead and stuff like that. And it's whiskey. Like, what? And it's not like super hoppy and bitter. Oh, come on. Like, you're crazy. This is like one of the best things I've ever had.
Yeah, it's so in our wheelhouse that it reminds me of like something that we would make ourselves.
It does.
Like it hits that level of like there's not really a lot to complain about. And I know I'm generally a little bit critical on things. I try and get as analytical on it as possible and like really judge if like the advertisement's right there. But you drop away from that and you just say, would you drink this? And this is probably one of the few things, I'm not a big drinker, it's one of the few things on the podcast I'd say, yeah, I'd grab a 6-pack of this if almost every time I go to the grocery store.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like Dragon's Milk and this are like the 2 beers that you've been like, yeah, I love those. I'll just
get and even Dragon's Milk, because it's an alcoholic, I can't drink it all the time.
Right.
But like this, I think really does shine. I know. Again, most time when you see they're like the barrel aged, a lot of times they're like pushing that 12, 15% ABV, something like that. And those things definitely have their place, but that's a hard, especially as like as big as Dragon's Milk is, to be like, yeah, I'm going to sit down and have one of these every night. But that's phenomenal.
Yeah. I could have one of these every night too. It's too bad it's a seasonal beer.
Yeah, that maybe needs to not be a thing.
We need to call up Great Lakes and be like, look, you know that Christmas ale that you make? Make that all the time. We'll buy it.
I'm almost wondering if we should go get a couple other of their beers and see how well they hold up.
We get their beers all the time.
Oh, okay. That's how good I am remembering.
We've done a bunch of their stouts and porters, and I think there was a shandy. Yeah. But as a matter of fact, the shandy's also like one of those beers that we were like, this is phenomenal. We can drink it all the time.
There you go.
So Great Lakes Brewing, I'm pretty happy with them. I generally get their stuff and like it a whole lot. Remember that cranberry shandy thing that we had?
Yeah.
That was a Great Lakes beer.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Oh, I need to get some of those
There
this
you go,
year.
Great Lakes.
Anyways, all right. Moving off of a good beer and right into a good topic, I think. Um, should have saved this one for last, but we're just gonna like go into it.
Mm-hmm.
So, articles linked in the description, but Apple is now allowing emulators on iOS. It has some restrictions. This is the first time that you've ever been able to truly have emulation on iOS. I'm stoked for it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, look, say what you want about Apple's stuff. Their hardware is generally really, really good. I don't necessarily always love the operating system. I don't love how they lock down things. I prefer Android for those reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And Android stuff is generally pretty good stuff, but like the M1 chip, I mean, you've got one, right? Like
Yeah.
the for your complaints about the laptop, the hardware.
Oh yeah. The hardware is good. I think I've always given Apple that is that they make good machines. They just maybe charge too much for them.
Yeah.
And the OSs are not always amazing. But yeah, I mean the performance of it is phenomenal.
Yeah. And so basically you're getting that sort of performance, that sort of ARM performance, which we already know works really well for emulation on an M1 type chip. You know, that's in a, well, it's the, so anything, I think the Bionic chips are the ones that they use for um, the iPhones. But you're going to get that. Plus, if you got like one of the newer iPads or one of the newer iPhones,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what?
Yeah, I mean, I feel you because I'm gonna have to travel for work later this year for the longest I've ever had travel for work for like almost 15 days.
Yep.
And I was already thinking, it's like, okay, I normally travel with just my phone unless I'm going with my wife, and then we'll bring the other stuff because I like to leave it for her. I'm like, maybe I should just get like a tablet or something, like and something that's easier to use in the plane than a laptop. And then I read this article. I was like, maybe I do need to get myself a tablet.
Like an
And
iPad Mini or something
yeah,
like that. Those are pretty fantastic tablets.
mm-hmm.
But
And
I
now
mean,
I can emulate on them.
as an iPad Pro user, it's got some good games on it. Like, and the keyboard is pretty great. The typing experience on it's pretty good. You get one of the like newer iPad Pros. I mean, you don't even have to get a brand new one, just like one from like 2-3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Mine's a 2018 model, and it is awesome for just about everything that I'd want it to do. Um, and then you add like being able to play something like one of the old Final Fantasies or something like that on it, like on a plane ride for like 5-6 hours. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. It's a compelling argument.
It is. It's a very compelling argument. And so I've had, other tablets. I know that the new Samsung tablets are really good. They're fairly easy to get, like things like, emulation running on.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have like these little handheld emulators. They're great too. So I wouldn't trade those out, right, for that. But if you're not going to carry a Steam Deck, you're not going to get yourself a Retroid or an Ein Odin or something like that, and you're not going to like have like a Miu or an Ambernic type device. Having a phone that can do all that stuff really well, and the newer iPhones can actually run some like AAA games too.
Yeah, I mean that's where I'm sitting because I want just like a general purpose one because I want it's if I want to sit down watch Netflix or whatever, I think the Miu Minis are still amazing. I mean, I still love the ones that I played over here when we were doing the reviews for them. Or I guess those weren't all Mius, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Those little handheld emulators are fantastic. But now there's just one more option for
Yeah.
people. It's like, do you need a tablet? Because my family has no tablets other than the one that my daughter has. I don't really have, apart from my PC, like that's what I mainly use. And it's not exactly like I can bring that across the country with me or use that on the plane. So it's like, yeah, maybe that makes a lot of sense.
It does, and the battery life's pretty fantastic,
Mm-hmm.
like flipping awesome on those things. I think the last time I went out to San Jose, that plus a battery pack, which wasn't like a huge battery pack, kept me going like the whole flight. And I watched put a couple movies on it, put like some other stuff on it. It's great. It's
Yep.
awesome. Works really well. So there's nothing I think to really complain about as far as like emulation there. I wonder how Apple is going to turn it into like some sort of like crap show. Like,
Yeah, that's the other side of it, is that something's going to happen here. And it's probably going to happen on the first legal battle.
yeah,
Like the first time Nintendo goes after Apple because Apple has something. Though, hopefully, with the way it looks like this is written up, it's the app developers that are responsible for the security of the images and stuff like that
yeah,
to make sure that you're not pirating anything. So, like, you know,
yeah.
hopefully that's something somewhere. We'll see.
Well, so like I think back to like Steam. You know, Dolphin was on Steam. It was going to be on Steam, and the Nintendo went to you know Valve and was like, hey, you know, you can't have that on there because it's got proprietary code in it, and almost shut down the Dolphin emulation project
Mm-hmm.
because the developers, instead of making you go get your own keys for Dolphin,
Mm-hmm.
which I mean, if you have a hacked any sort of like PlayStation, Wii U, Switch, get a GameCube, you can just get those keys off of it, right?
Yeah.
But they, instead of that, because the keys were like a common key, they just put them in the code to make
Yeah,
it
yeah.
easier for people. And like you can't do that. That's proprietary stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
like I could pull mine off of my GameCube, and there's some supposedly that's legal. There are
Yeah.
some people. Nintendo says it's not, but supposedly that's legal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to side on the side of Nintendo is just being a jerk,
Yeah.
and it is actually legal. However, taking my keys and giving them to you would be illegal, and
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't do that. All right. Now nobody's going to probably get on to me about that, because nobody's going to know that I gave you my keys. But if
Yeah,
I
yeah.
put them in code that I'm distributing to the whole world and everybody starts using it, yeah, and then I'm publishing it on a platform like Steam, which
Mm-hmm.
distributes it everywhere. Nah, man, you
Yeah,
can't do
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So I imagine it's probably going to be something like that. So emulation projects are probably going to get shut down because people are doing things like putting keys in there. But then if we just look at like the recent Yuzu shutdown, which we haven't even talked about on this podcast, have you heard
Mm-hmm.
about this?
I have. I won't say I'm super informed, but I read a couple
All
articles.
right, so basically the um, the developers of Yuzu were also the developers of Citra.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the one that they were doing. No, it's yeah, Citra. I'm pretty sure. So they basically the Switch and the um, I think a Nintendo 3DS, you know, emulator, and Nintendo went to them and they said, we are going to sue you because you are emulating a console and allowing for piracy, because people have to pirate stuff to be able to do this. Now they followed all the rules. You don't have the hardware keys. They don't provide you with any ROMs. They don't give you anything like that. You have to provide your own encryption stuff and everything like that. They were just literally emulating the hardware on
Mm-hmm.
like different hardware. And instead of fighting the legal battle, they said, okay, sure, we'll just give up and shut down their project. Nintendo now owns the code for Yuzu, and because the lead developer was also the lead developer for this other project, and I think I said the right project. I could be wrong about that, but it was for the other project.
Mm-hmm.
They basically shut down that project because that was part of the agreement, and they now own the code for that too.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so like now Nintendo can legally go and give cease and desist and DMCA stuff for things that are open source, because they own they like are like, well, we own
Yeah.
the developer
We're
turned
open
this over.
source.
Well, no, they're not. They're claiming that it's now proprietary,
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. They were open source.
but
Yep.
they still are open source. The projects are still open source. So like it's like
Hmm.
Nintendo just like was like, come at me, bro. Like I'm just gonna throw my lawyers at you.
Yeah.
And I love a lot of Nintendo's products. I hate the way that they do stuff like this.
Oh,
you know?
100%.
Yeah.
Now, I wonder if that'll land them anywhere interesting, because if it was open source and there were people that weren't part of that agreement who owned their parts of the code, I mean, all that takes is someone going in and making an update to it. And then if that update shows up in anything Nintendo does, say, hey, that part wasn't part of your, that wasn't part of the code when you obtained it when it became proprietary. This is open source again. You've stolen my code.
Yeah.
That's very easily provable.
Yep.
So that might be an interesting thing. In a couple of years, we might see Nintendo actually getting in serious trouble.
It could.
The things with the litigations is, it becomes so amalgamous and they can outlawyer you. But when it's something as cut and dry that you don't need a huge defense team, where it's like, that is patentedly my code right there, that's a battle that an average person might be able to win. Because you don't need a massive legal team. All you need is someone who will continue to file for extensions and whatever else you need.
Yeah.
You just need one dedicated lawyer to get that one through.
Yeah, and I think that's that's probably, if anything comes out that's good out of this, is that it's going to force Nintendo to actually adhere to open source law.
Yeah.
Which there are some pretty big, like the EFF and stuff like that. So I haven't heard how that's going to turn out. Just saying, I imagine that Apple is going to be more like Valve, and there's going to be some sort of like legal battle that Nintendo or Sony is going to try to get into with one of these developers, and they're going to do something, and if the developer doesn't cave, then it's going to end up being this like huge like row, and maybe Apple will just be like, no, it's not worth it, and they just shut it down, or something like that. So, and then there's like this whole like, well, now we have a lawsuit on our hand because you're trying to like DMCA open source code, and you don't actually have the ability to do that, or something like that. So we'll see what ends up happening. Before I go on, anything else? Like, what's your favorite game that you're looking forward to playing on your new iOS device?
I don't know. I still got to decide from doing iOS reviews out there. I'll admit, it crossed my mind just to buy a second Steam Deck. Because you can put you can get web browser and all that in it. It's non-tablet mode.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's that. I'm gonna sync up with you on that one after the podcast, because I got to check some Steam compatibility for like a couple games.
I'm just gonna tell you, yes, that is the way. That is the way. Either a Steam Deck or ROG Ally or something like that. That's such a better experience than like trying to do iOS stuff, because the touchscreen controls just suck.
Yeah.
But if you only have one device,
it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see. I gotta price some things out. I gotta see. I'm sitting on a significant chunk of like my reward money for like I won't call the program out by name, but like you do special things at work, they give you little bonuses.
Yeah.
And so I've got $600-700 sitting there.
That's a Steam Deck.
It's also a good tablet. I got to figure out what I'm going to do.
You get an OLED Steam Deck and a good battery pack. You'll have to spend a few $100s on top of that. That's the way to go.
Yeah,
you should totally do that. Ricky's going to join the Steam Deck crowd.
Oh, look, I already got one.
No,
yeah.
You don't have one. Who has one in your family?
Well, okay, my wife's the primary person who plays it, but we actually do share it. And one of the things that we've really enjoyed doing with that, instead of having to wire up my desktop to the TV, is we've got the little docking station for it.
Yeah, just put the Steam Deck in.
Yeah, we play things like Deep Rock Galactic, the Survivor game, whatever that one's called, and Belantro and all that, which are really fun. Which we haven't run across any story yet to Belantro, but maybe it's there somewhere.
No, Belantro doesn't have a story. It's like just kind of a spoken story. I haven't played the full game, but I've watched enough about it. It's like just a card game.
Okay, yeah. Somebody told me that there was like a story related to it, kind of like the Inscribed game was.
Oh, well, so you're talking about Inscription?
Yeah, Inscription.
Inscription and Bellatro have like a similar kind of theme as far as story goes, but Bellatro is like you're just doing this thing.
Yeah.
There is no like story, where Inscription, like, you play the story through the game.
Yeah. Because I played Inscription. That was a lot of fun. I liked the first half more than the second half. But, yeah, it's a good time.
All right, let's talk about Roku. Roku has a pending patent to show ads when you have a game console plugged into your Roku device, like a Roku TV, like this TCL that I have over here. When you have it plugged in, then when you pause the game, or like there's a pause on anything like that, they can show you an ad on the TV.
Yeah, I was really hyped when I first saw the article title, and then very disappointed by the time I got to the end of the article. In my naive mind, because I was running off the hope of emulation on iOS, I was like, oh, they've patented just a general technology for if you're like playing a video game, an ad could be shown in it. And I was thinking, man, that would be a great way for developers that want to make free to play games to still have some level of monetization to support them.
Right.
Where it's like, oh, like in when normally you would have a 45-second loading screen while you're waiting for a multiplayer match to boot up, they could show you some like targeted game ad or something like that. That wouldn't be too bad. I was thinking, of course, that could obviously be abused for other things. And then it became the absolute worst thing I've ever heard of that Roku can analyze the traffic coming through your HDMI to find out what you're doing so they can send you targeted ads for them.
Yeah.
That's awful. I'm going to pause a movie, and instead of being able to read the credits or whatever else it is that I paused it for, you're going to show me an ad based on what other movie you think I'd like to see?
Or I'm in the middle of a video game and I pause it so that I can read something on I need to see the thing that's up so that I can read the thing on this wiki to be able to figure out what I'm doing because it's some sort of puzzle or RPG game or something like that, and they show me an ad that blocks out my screen, so I literally can't do that anymore.
Yeah, and it does nothing for the people that made the media you're consuming. Like, I was living in that hopeful world of like, okay, this could be a revenue stream for people who maybe don't want to charge $20 for their game. They want to charge, maybe nothing. And then there's a $5 version if you want it ad free. And it's like a lot of these mobile games that have like the little ads at the bottom. Yep. It's like, and you could do something kind of like that for larger games, for the indie scene, to help support the indie scene and stuff like that. But to hear, no, these are just ads for Roku, that's just a tax on you having a Roku device. And it's like, that sucks. That's just going to make me not get a Roku device.
Well, look, I've had Roku since Gen 1. And for the most part, they were pretty good, like, devices. Now, I know that, like, the business model for it is not sustainable because they, like, sell you this hardware at, like, a loss and then try to make up through their partner deals, other stuff. And advertisements that they do, and they already do advertisements on the thing. And since then I've bought a second generation. I had like another one, and then the Rokus weren't as good as the Nvidia Shield, so my primary streaming device has been an Nvidia Shield, and I've gotten a couple of other TV sets that have built-in Roku OS on them. These TCLs, I've got two of them. And those have worked. I mean, I've had this one for almost 5 years, 4.5 years, something like that. And it's a fantastic TV set. Well, if they put that on here, like, unless it's like something that we can't do it with older stuff, then I'll keep it. But if they put that on here, that thing's going in the garbage. I'm buying a new one.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to have something like that in my house. Like, not at all. I will tolerate certain things. Like, my cell phone is always spying on me. My, lady tube, whatever thing, is listening to things that I'm saying. Okay, look, I don't like that. That's creepy, but whatever. My TV set is now interrupting me from being able to play, video games. We're just heading towards that dystopian hell where, like, if I close my eyes and I'm not being shown ads anymore, I'm like, lights turn on to wake me up.
Yeah.
Like, what?
It's wild. I mean, and like, who are these ads for? Because I don't know any adult today, except for much older adults, like, my parents' age, that even pay attention to a commercial. A commercial shows up in the middle of us watching a movie on Hulu, and I'm on my phone, like, I guess I'm waiting for this commercial.
Yep.
And I don't even know what you were advertising to me. So, like, how are we... I guess I'm just questioning, at what point does the ad model fall apart? Because surely they're not making as much money on the ads as they could be through some other form of, like, product.
Well, it becomes some sort of, like, crazy cyclical thing. Like, where, like, you're not showing ads from people who are legitimate people. Like, it's an ad for a game that someone is, like, running an ad in that's getting them money from, like, something else, and so they're trying to get people, like, filtered into that or something like that. So, like Brotato
Mm-hmm.
on mobile. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if you've played that or not.
Not mobile.
Do not play it. Do not get it. Do not get the ad-supported thing. I haven't bought the game on mobile, so I'll come back. That's like something I
Mm-hmm.
plan to do. But you know how I like to do. I like to like test all these things.
Yeah.
I got the ad-supported version of Brotato. Holy crap! Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, cancer on my mobile device. They had like this ad that kept playing over and over again. Like, okay, other video game ads, that's fine. It's for kids, like
Yeah.
whatever. Or maybe like some adults who are interested in that stuff. They started showing me ads for this thing that's like basically a gambling thing that promises to give you
Mm-hmm.
money, and it's got Mr. Beast on it but it's not a Mr. Beast
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
It's they're just using Jimmy's likeness, probably without his consent.
Mm-hmm.
So like, it's a you know what I kind of thought was like this kind of like cool developer that was like making these things, like buying into an advertisement network that clearly is advertising things that are not legal.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you're if you're allowed to be on Apple's platform
Mm-hmm.
and Apple is getting a cut of whatever you do, and then you're doing stuff that is blatantly stealing other people's likenesses,
Yeah.
and we're talking about like DMCA and stuff like that for things that are like legitimate things like yuzu. What? How
Yeah.
is that still like going?
Well, that's a good point. I mean, the only couple commercials I've seen recently I remember were for like sports books and stuff like that. It's like gambling and other things. And it's like the pipeline just has to be gone.
Yeah,
That Oreo advertises a new cookie and that massively boosts sales.
yeah,
Because how many people are actually watching that ad or care about that ad apart from like small children? And so what's the future of ads? Apart, I mean, maybe it's going this direction that it's targeting really cheap to make because they're illegal and they're just trying to scam you, or they're looking to hook vulnerable people on gambling or something like that. Because I mean, surely the I have to have 800 ads to talk about the next daytime TV show. That stuff doesn't actually work anymore. I mean, maybe with the oldest generation, but it doesn't work with your generation or my generation, or I
no,
would imagine the younger generations as they've grown up. It'll always kind of work on kids, but like once those kids grow up, and I've never bought my kid anything they've seen on a commercial.
Well,
So,
I mean, there is some psychology that goes into ads, and they are able to manipulate a certain amount of like elderly and middle aged and younger people, depending on demographic stuff. So, like, we do get influenced by those things. It is one of the oldest forms of malware. It's like a social
mm-hmm.
malware, but also we like don't secure those ad networks, and so that advertisement that I was getting for Brotato could have been a person who went in and just injected their advertisement
Yeah,
into that,
that's a good point.
and that could have malicious code that is like installing something,
Mm-hmm.
like that, one of the uh, uh, iPhone hacking tools. I'm just blanking right now on the name, but one of those sorts of things, that I mean, you can do all that through advertisements,
Yeah,
and like for someone that's out there, it's like, surely who would want my you're probably not the target, you're just the victim.
yeah, that's true.
Or they're gonna like take your information, or they're gonna like use your device as like a way of attacking something else. And so not
Mm-hmm.
only do you become the victim, you become the attacker, and if someone mistakes you for the original attacker, then you become the second victim
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the same thing. So like, from a security standpoint, if we're not securing advertisement platforms so that they're preventing things like this, and we're not holding them to be responsible for it, get that crap out of here. So
mm-hmm.
like, one, they're not relevant anymore. They aren't like really targeting people like they're supposed to be. Two, if it's a targeted ad, and like I'm supposed to have targeted advertising profiles, that is definitely not for me. I've never used a gambling site in my damn
Yeah,
life. Like, I don't gamble on anything. So your system is failing there. And then three, you literally are injecting malware into people's devices when you're telling them that they need to be more secure.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a, I mean,
It's a
that's
cluster.
exactly what's going to happen with this Roku thing, So like, I don't need my PS5 to get malware on it so that I can't, play video games and like, I'm stuck losing, all of my games that I digitally bought or like got through the PlayStation
Mm-hmm.
Network or something like that, which I generally don't do. But every single flipping game now is a digital game, even if you buy it like on a disc.
Yeah.
So whatever. I'm getting on my high horse. I'm starting to get pumped. um, yeah. So I don't know. Do you have anything else to say about ads?
No, no. I think it's atrocious what they're doing, and I hope, regardless of whether they secure the patent, I hope it never actually makes it to production.
Yeah, me too. I hope that it's something that they're securing and not for a production use. All right, so we're going to test this beer as a warmer beer. Now, that seems to be our thing that we're doing this season. We're injecting that into the podcast. It's an advertisement. Maybe has some malware in it.
I'll say it's about the same for me. I don't consider it any better or worse. It's still very good.
Well, there is a little bit more of like a citrusy note that wasn't there before. And I think that comes from the spices. Or it could be from the honey, depending on what kind of honey they used. If they use like orange blossom or a lemon blossom or something like that honey, like some sort of citrus blossom honey, that could be what I'm tasting.
Could be.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit more citrusy, but other than that, it's basically the same.
Yeah.
It actually tastes a little bit more like lemon tea.
Maybe, yeah. I can see it's kind of taking that little bit of a shift.
Yeah.
But yeah, as opposed to the previous beer where it's like I would not drink it cold, but I would drink it chilled. I think this tastes pretty equally good.
Yeah,
Flavor profile is a little bit different, but still very good.
Yeah, I would drink it across the board. Just I don't know if this traditionally in my list is Deschutes the Abyss is like my number one beer that I've ever had. The 2016 version of Deschutes the Abyss. Not just any version of Deschutes the Abyss, but the 2016 version. This is getting pretty close to that one. Like in terms of thing, and it's I'm not sure whether or not I whether or not it's like in my top 5, but it's it's up there. Like, let me think through what my top 5 is. I love Dragon's Milk, so Dragon's Milk, just regular old Dragon's Milk is in there. Deschutes the Abyss. Before that, it was the pancake. Before last year, it was the pancake beer that we had last year. Like went to there, and then the Founders Backwoods Bastard, and there was another Founders beer. Their barrel aged stout beer. Not the Backwoods Bastard, but the other one, because that's the breakfast stout. Oh no, it's Yeah Toast. Not Yeah Toast. It's French Toast Stout from. So those are my top 5, anyways. Like I have them written down. I know that's my top 5. I think I like this one better than the other maple. I think this is bumping that one down, and yeah, I think the one that kind of rose into my top 5 last year, this one's taking the place of that one's like now in my top 10.
Yeah,
this is my
go.
top 5. Yeah. Anyways, enough talking. So, this has been season 7, episode 4 of the Beer and Broadband podcast. It's slated to come out on April 23rd, 2024. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.